I wasn't always into hacking. Looking back, I actually never thought I'd be smart enough to become a hacker. When I was 13, I struggled with basic math every day in school. My teacher, Mr. Perkins, would always call me up to the front of the class to solve equations and surface areas on the board, like I was there for his entertainment or something. I wasn't dumb, I just had a really bad memory. So I guess you could say that I had trouble focusing too. I was always so scared when Mr. Perkins called me up. My legs would start shaking as I walked up to the board. He would snicker and smirk without even making an effort to hide his joy at my failure. I guess some people just like having power over others. One day, I had to skip breakfast because I was late for school. That one missed meal changed my life. I was especially cranky that day by the time it was math class. Mr. Perkins called me up as usual, and I tried to memorize my notes even though I knew it was pointless. I went up to the front of the class, and before I could write anything, my tummy let out a really loud sound. Mr. Perkins was the first to laugh, but the rest of the class soon followed. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran out of class and straight to the library, thinking I would get some peace and quiet there. While I was sitting at a table there, feeling embarrassed and angry, a shadow of a man walked by and dropped a book right next to me. I was startled by the sound. "Hey, watch!" I started as I turned around, but there was nobody there. I looked around, wondering if I had imagined it. But the book was right there. The title read, "Hacking for Dummies." Hacking? I thought to myself. Interesting. I suddenly started getting all these crazy ideas for hacking things. What if I could even hack a phone? Like in the movies. It got my mind really engaged. Imagine your teacher is trying to tell you who Christopher Columbus is, and you hear their phone go, "It was me. I farted before the break." I wasn't the most popular kid in school, so something like this could be my ticket to recovering from the tummy incident. I spent the rest of the school day reading that book. It was like my mind finally found something it could focus on. I think I hit some kind of mental growth spurt because I was starting to remember things much better. I started to look at videos online and find different books and articles to read on hacking. I spent as much time as I could get in trying to learn how to do what the kid from the movie did. Pretty soon, though, I realized that hacking somebody's phone and playing sounds on it was kind of complicated. There were all sorts of numbers and letters that were going over my head when I tried to learn it. I decided to start off with something small. There was this guy in my class, Robert. He was a pretty quiet kid who always sat at the back, so I thought he would be the perfect guinea pig. I decided that I would just start by hacking his Facebook. I spent months looking up how to hack Facebook, and I mean really hack it, not with those tricks or internet scams. Back then, Facebook had a different security system, and it was much easier to hack into. All I needed was his email to start. One day, after the last class ended at school, I walked up to Robert and tried to get him to hand over his email. "Hey, hi? I noticed you weren't in class on Monday. Do you need any notes that I could maybe send over to you?" "Oh, no thanks, Katie. I already got them from Jake." I had no idea who Jake was, but I already hated him for ruining my plan. Still, one of the first rules about hacking is to expect your first attempt to fail. I already had a backup plan. "Oh, that's good. I guess I'll see you at the party then. It's amazing how fancy those invites were." "What? Which party?" "The one for Mr. Perkins, of course." "Mr. Perkins? From 7th grade?" "Yeah." "Oh, I guess I wasn't invited." "What? That can't be. They emailed everybody from his class all those years ago for a little get-together. I'm sure you were in his class too," I said sweetly. "Yeah, I was. He always got you to solve math," Robert said while laughing a bit. But I was pretty embarrassed that he remembered all that. "Right," I muttered while gritting my teeth. I thought to myself, after this is over, maybe I'll hack Mr. Perkins too. Then I turned to Robert and went, "Hey, why don't you give me your email, and I'll go check out if they forgot to send you one. I don't know. Parties aren't really my thing, you know?" I was getting annoyed at myself at this point. Of course parties aren't his thing. He's the quiet kid. But I wasn't about to go home empty-handed. I needed to think fast. Eventually I said, "Okay, well, how about I just send you the invite just in case you change your mind?" Sure," he said. About time, I thought to myself. Robert took out a piece of paper and wrote something on it. He folded the paper and then handed it to me. He immediately looked away and seemed rather shy all of a sudden. I opened it and saw that its contents read, I couldn't help but giggle a little and saw his face flush. "It's an old email," he said quietly. "Please try to keep it to yourself." "Of course," I said coyly. "You can trust me." That night, I skipped dinner and went straight to work. I followed the instructions in the book I was reading and opened up the big black screen with all the code and numbers. I entered his email and had to mess around a bit with the whole thing. It was almost midnight, but I wasn't sleepy. Actually, I was starting to think about being caught by the FBI or something. Would they throw me in prison? Will I have to share a cell with a hippie? Would I get on the most wanted list? That last one actually sounds kind of cool though. My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a beep on my computer that told me that it had found the password to Robert's email. I could feel the excitement rising and my heart started beating fast. I looked at the time and was happy to see that it was nearly 2 a.m. Surely Robert would be asleep by now and wouldn't notice until the next day. I went to Facebook and entered his details to log in. The wait was really intense. I was praying for time to go faster, even though it only took 2 seconds to log in. But it worked. I was ecstatic. I took a second to look at my handiwork as I stared at Robert's profile from his own account. This isn't just some scam that you pulled off, I told myself. This is the real deal. I looked through his messages and I was amazed at the conversations he was having with people. Robert was talking to people with doctor in their names. I checked out the profiles of these people and there were teachers and lecturers at some pretty fancy colleges around the world. He sounded like some sort of genius talking to these people about science and computers and stuff. But hey, I guess he wasn't smart enough to avoid getting hacked. I scrolled to his chat from a day ago and saw the only person who wasn't a boring old adult. It was this young girl our age who was from Connecticut, according to her Facebook profile anyway. I went through their messages and one thing became very clear. She was Robert's girlfriend. I was stunned for a moment. This guy barely spoke throughout our school year and he's on Facebook hitting on this girl with lines that would give any girl weak knees. I felt like he was somebody completely new. I suddenly started to feel excited at having this power over somebody. I could text any of these people he talks to and they'd think it was him. I loved the feeling that I knew everything he was hiding from the world. One hack was all it took to reveal his secrets. Now it was time for a little fun. I thought that it would be a good idea to give this teenage genius with a girlfriend the spotlight for a while. I also wanted to test the powers of my hacking. I went to his profile and began typing. Then I hit the post button, logged out, and went to bed giggling to myself. The next day, I woke up feeling terrible. I must have slept really late. But as soon as I remembered my success from last night, I got this new wave of energy. I wanted to see if I had made a difference to the real world, not just the one I hacked. I got ready for school and left in a hurry. When I got to class, I was really pleased with what I saw. Robert was indeed the center of attention. Everybody was around his desk and talking to him. Some people were congratulating him. Others were laughing at him. I walked over with a smile and asked somebody from the crowd around him, "Hey, what's going on? You didn't see?" The boy took out his phone and showed me exactly what I expected to see. Apparently, Robert had announced on Facebook last night, "I have a confession to share with you all. I wet myself when I do algebra." I laughed and looked over at Robert, who was just trying to cover his face while people sarcastically congratulated his bravery at the same time for the confession. The guy in front of me went on to say, "He deleted it now, but not before we all saw it. I'm Jake, by the way. I don't think we've met before." "So you're Jake," I thought to myself. "I think I'll call you next to be hacked." I laughed at the little joke I had with myself and ignored Jake as I went to my seat. I felt amazing. I got a deep look inside somebody's life. I saw things they would not share with anybody else, and I changed their real life too. This was just a harmless prank, but I knew I could do much better and much bigger. I grew up with the same attraction to hacking. I kept learning new methods and weaknesses in online security. By the time I was 25, I was a professional hacker. I worked on contracts from time to time, doing some small jobs and some big jobs. The money was good, but the jobs were getting too easy. I started to notice that hacking was getting boring. Most of it was about big companies wanting to get rid of their own legal violations and avoid penalties. I knew I wanted more than this, though. I had several boyfriends to keep my life interesting. I hacked into every one of them to keep the feeling of excitement and to always have the power and control in the relationship, even if they didn't realize it. One guy I dated was cheating on me with 2 other women. Sometimes I wonder what happened to him after I leaked his private and exposing chats to the other 2 women, and his parents, and his sister, and his cousins, and also his neighbors. Not all of the guys I dated were scumbags, though. Some of them were smart scumbags. I hacked into one guy's bank account to see that he was donating money to a charity for orphans. Sweet, right? Yeah, well, after a while, I noticed a pattern in his donations, and it turned out that he was just laundering money to avoid taxes. An anonymous report to the authority fixed that right up. I couldn't stand dating nice guys. Hacking them was no fun because they were just so clean all the time. It was boring to not find anything interesting. However, everything changed when I met Trevor. We met at a bar. It was the most typical encounter, since that's where I met most of my short-term boyfriends. Trevor was sweet and charming. He had one of those handsome faces that you feel like you've seen somewhere before, maybe in a movie. He always knew what to say to make me feel special, if I was a normal girl, that is. The most interesting thing about him was that I could not find a way to hack him. I tried casually at first, starting with his Instagram and Snapchat, like I usually do, but I couldn't manage to break in. He was using a software that I had never seen before. It was stopping me from accessing anything about him. What really got me interested in him was when I used everything I had, an entire decade's worth of hacking expertise, only to be stopped at every route. It was frustrating, but also exciting. Could this man finally be a challenge? At the same time, I was also afraid of him. He claimed to be a divorced man, but there was no information on him anywhere before 2016, the year he got married. He was friendly and nice on the surface, but everything about his accounts was secured by the hand of a professional. He said he worked in retail, but obviously, I don't believe anything the guys I date say. And he was into creating mirrored texts. How is that even a useful skill? I wanted to think that he had another professional hacker set up his security. I knew it was possible since I had done the same on my own accounts. But my fear was, what if he set up his security himself? I had to know what he was hiding. In our first 2 weeks of dating, which was already longer than most of my relationships, we tried to get to know each other. He asked about me and my hobbies, and I asked about his presence online. I wanted to see if he could give me something I could use to hack him. I knew I couldn't just ask him about his security because he would want to know why I was hacking him in the first place. Too many complications taking that route. The only thing I could confirm about him was his ID card details, and even a simpleton could put that in Google and check if it was legitimate. I needed to know something he did not share with the world. It was an itch that I just couldn't scratch. My lucky break came on our 1-month anniversary. He arranged for a date night at this fancy new restaurant that everybody around town was hyped up about. I wasn't sure how he managed to get us seats at peak dinner time. I was expecting the night to go as usual, that I would have to act like I had fun. But really, I just wanted to hack this smooth-talking man. We had a nice meal, and when it was time to order desserts, he went with a chocolate banana split and I ordered a slice of tiramisu cake. When the waiter left to get our order, Trevor put up a serious look and said, "I think it's time I told you something." My eyes flashed and I began listening even more intently as he went on. "I haven't been completely honest with you." I nodded my head so he could go on. "You see, I know I've told you that I'm a divorced man, but what you don't know is, I took her last name when we separated, and I kept it." I felt my eyes widen to the point that they were about to pop out of their sockets. This was big news! Besides knowing that he did something controversial and unconventional, I finally had a lead. His original last name. I could barely contain my excitement as I said, "So, what's really your name?" "My real name is Trevor Noah." "Phew, I am so glad that's off my chest," he said. I was glad he's in a confessing mood. "I'm glad you told me," I said sweetly. "Please excuse me one moment." I speed walked straight to the ladies' room. I took out my second phone that I use for hacking. Technology has really come a long way, and I looked up everything about him. It was like he made completely new profiles after being married, but everything was without the same level of security. This was a goldmine for me. I decided to save the juicy stuff for when I got home. A quick hack into his Instagram and Facebook showed me that he was clean enough. I went back to him at our table where our desserts had arrived. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Everything is great." "I love honesty," I said with a beaming smile. "That's good to know," he replied, trying to match my smile. "Hey, so I was thinking we could register together for one of those couple getaway trips, to celebrate." I was already daydreaming about all the stuff I'd find on this guy once I got home, so I didn't really hear him. Hello?" he asked. "Oh, what?" I suddenly snapped back to reality. He asked me again, and I said, "Sure, why not? I might just dump him tonight anyways." "Perfect. Do you have an email I could register myself with?" This travel agency only lets you register once with a single email, and I already used mine with my ex, so you understand? I paused. I had already given him an email that wasn't linked to any account of mine, and always kept my personal email to myself. I eventually realized that nothing he did mattered, since now I had access to everything about him. Rookie move on his part. So I gave him my personal email. That's when he stopped smiling. "Big mistake," he said coldly. "Excuse me?" I started, feeling my previous fear of him returning. "Never give out your personal email. Any account linked to your email is where you're most vulnerable," he stated simply. I was dumbstruck. He knew how to hack? "Miss Katie, we've been watching you for a while now." Trevor brushed back his hair to reveal a small earpiece tucked in. He went on, "By telling me your personal email, you've allowed me to access your bank accounts." I was starting to panic. My phone beeped, and I looked at it to see that I had taken out $10,000 in the last 10 seconds. "What do you want?" I asked shakily. "We want you to join us." "What?" I said as my phone beeped again, and I saw that the $10,000 had returned. I looked intently at Trevor as he said, "We are a team of elite hackers working to bring wrongdoers to justice, and we are in need of somebody with your particular set of skills. Think about it. You could work from the shadows and use your powers to make a real difference in the world." "So, like Batman?" I asked, feeling immense relief. "Almost exactly like Batman," Trevor said with that familiar smile. My phone beeped again, and I saw that another $20,000 had been transferred to my account. I gasped. "There's plenty more where that came from," Trevor started. "You're talented at getting people to talk, but a little too emotional. You let your excitement cloud your judgment when I told you my real name." We need to send you out into the field. You can't make these mistakes there. So, you guys deal with high-profile bad guys then, right? Trevor nodded. So, I thought to myself, now I get to have leverage on the baddest of the bad. I felt a grin coming on myself. I'm in. I knew you would be. Trevor got up and was about to leave. Wait, I called after him. How did you pick me? Oh, isn't it obvious? Trevor said. He picked up a napkin from the table and brought out a pen from his coat and wrote something on it. Then he folded it in a way I remembered seeing before. He placed the napkin on the table and walked out. I unfolded a part of the napkin to see that he had written his name inverted. I unfolded the other half of the napkin and gasped. Written there was the mirrored version of his name. R-O-B-E-R-T. Robert T. Robert T.